Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us to this LinkedIn Live this Thursday morning. So we are going to be talking about Q5, specifically around what we can do in the Q5 that's about to be on our doorstep. I'm Katy Howell. I'm the CEO of Immediate Future, and I'm joined by Belle Lawrence, our Associate Director. Let me help her into the system. Now, poor Belle, hello Belle, has joined us with a stinky cold. So if she mutes and sneezes, you know.
Yeah, my voice might sound a little husky, so
not a bad thing. So we're going to tackle the Q5 period, which is a bit of a marketing jargon thing, isn't it? Q5, because there's only 4 quarters in a year. But actually, what Q5 stands for is it's an overlooked but really crucial time of year for marketeers, specifically in the food and drink industry, and with the backdrop of the recession, cost of living crisis, and the changes in consumer preferences, where we want to dive really deep into what is the opportunity in Q5 and how can you pivot to make the most of it. Before I kind of set the questions off with Belle, I just want to explain for those that don't know, Q5 marketing is often known as the hidden quarter. And the reason is it's a time from kind of Boxing Day onwards, or the 27th onwards, to sort of the middle of January, when people are typically on holiday or slowly going back to work. And what happens is consumer purchase intent remains kind of in a holiday high or a Christmas high. Usually there's lots of extra cash in hand from gifts or returned items, but basically people are holding back. And during a recession, what we see is people hold back their cash to spend it during the sale, to spend it in this Q5 period. So there is a massive opportunity for food and drink within this period as people start to look for little luxuries, little extras, as well as stocking up on essentials and value. So I'm going to kick off with the first question. Oh, by the way, please ask questions. We love to have random questions. So, we'll throw anything at us. Perfectly happy to hear from you. So, Belle, there's recorded that there's a 55 increase in Q5 profitability. So how should brands approach the period differently from the traditional sort of festive period?
Festive is obviously kind of crazy because you start off with Black Friday, but actually a lot of people were promoting this year Black Friday offers for like a month beforehand, which was kind of insane, trying to go after the value hunters and people that are looking for that deal and that discount. And I haven't yet seen much data about Black Friday, but I know personally did nothing on Black Friday at all. But for marketers and for brands, everyone's very focused on saying we've got to get them to buy this, we've got to make our numbers this year. And actually they're sort of more concerned about the bit before Christmas than they are that little bit after Christmas, and we sort of forget that period. So the interesting thing is, for marketers, we're all like, oh, it's Christmas, thank God. We'll just have a little break.
That's so true.
Much. Whereas actually for a lot of people, consumers particularly, they might be having a break, but they're actually going out and they're doing things, they're seeing friends and they're doing the shopping and they're starting to plan for the new year. So they may be busier over that period than they were up to Christmas because they're not marketers. Yeah. So for consumers, they are looking for inspiration still. They're looking for, where can I spend those vouchers that I've maybe been given, or as you said, returns, gifted money, that kind of thing. But they're also looking for easy ways to do it. They don't want to be bombarded with sale messages. Yes, okay, say that you've got a sale on, but if you continue to sort of hammer that home, particularly when you've got a variety of products like a food and drink brand will have, it will just put people off and they won't really know where to turn. So I think it's about hitting messaging which is helpful to the consumer rather than just here's a sale. So how can you make things more convenient for them? How can you reach them with the thing that they're actually interested in? How well can you, drive down your niche and your targeting to reach the thing that they were looking for? Are you able to kind of gather your pixels up and make sure that if they were looking at the shoes, then they would look at the shoes? If they were looking at, potentially hampers or maybe boxes of wine or whatever it happens to be, that you can drive them towards that. There is definitely still an element of kind of stress relief as well. So they're not looking for that beef Wellington recipe. They're not. They're looking for, how can I do quick 15-minute dinners? They might be thinking about New Year's, potentially be thinking, how can I do a nice dinner? But in all honesty, potentially they're really thinking about quick, convenient. Some food brands will have packages that they can put together. There's deals and that kind of thing, where they can buy the whole meal ready to go, or they can buy the cheese board and they can buy the set of wines. And the same for going into January. As you go into January, everyone's kind of a bit over it, and they just want something that's going to tick the box, get something healthy or get those treats in, and it's done, ticked. There's also some messaging that brands could use around gratitude. So that run up to the festive period, when we've all been talking about kind of, here's our amazing Christmas products, and use it on Christmas Day, use it with your family. Here are the things that you can eat and drink. Then post Christmas and going into January, kind of saying thank you that you did buy this, and show us what you've done with it, and use that UGC to really kind of hero the fact that they did support you before the Christmas period, is a really nice way, and kind of quite an easy way to, as a marketer and a brand, maybe take a breather and say, well, let them create the content for a bit, and utilize.
I love that. Anything for an easy life. Yeah. And I love that, because actually a lot of next year, I think, during a recessionary year, is always about sweating small stuff. And so I really like that, because that is about, say, gratitude is a really important part. The loyalty button, which says, we're so glad you bought our product. Have you tried it like this? Have you done that? So it's not pushing the sale, can have a massive impact as it flows through the rest of 2024. So I'm with you. I love that idea. And I think despite festive fatigue, engagement on platforms is really high in this sort of post-Christmas period, possibly because lots of people have the Christmas and New Year break, don't they? So, but and they're a bit fed up listening to Uncle Fred or whatever it is out there, that's and Bob and old aunties, and so they're kind of fiddling with their phones. And I think it's a golden opportunity to keep that momentum going, which you talked about. But also, what we see is that data-driven strategies really work when people are cost conscious in the food and drink market. And Instagram click-through rates are up 25% in Q5, which really shows you how much people spend more time in social in that period. So how can brands make the most of this and maximize the ROI in that period and really kickstart 2024?
Yeah, there's so many ways. It's quite interesting, because I still think a lot of people have in their heads, Instagram isn't clickable. You can't put a link in the caption. Maybe, I need to put that out on Facebook, or I need to use ads or whatever. And yes, you can definitely use ads to create the clickable content, for sure. But there are loads of other routes that you can do organically. And for food and drink brands, you maybe want to be able to put out lots of content and interesting content to reach lots of different people who are interested in different types of food and drink. And so if you're only doing ads in order to be clickable on Instagram, then it's going to take either quite a lot of budget or quite a lot of creative. So it may be the resource thing could come into it. But yeah, there are lots of ways to do it. So firstly, you've got a link in the bio in your Instagram. You can be really tactical about that. So if you've got a specific offer, so send them to a specific link, one page, one link that you want them to buy. Maybe it's your wholesale page. Maybe it's something that you really need to get off the shelves. Maybe you didn't sell a bit more before. Think about it tactically. Or of course you can do that link in bio, link tree, where you get a range of links so that people can go exactly where they need to go. In stories now, you can include a link that obviously people can click on, but the great tip here is don't just use the URL. You can mask that with a URL description over the top. So use a compelling CTA instead of just the URL. use a problem solver or some urgency. So, you know, if you were selling something specific, get this for 2024, you know, plan ahead for January, or offers like 30% off, ends this weekend. So you get that urgency in the cover link. It might be useful to also put a little badge or a little GIF that says link, just to make sure they know exactly where to click, because not all consumers are still used to clicking in stories. Using interactive tools is probably quite underused. So get them engaging before you kind of throw a link at them, if you like. So using polls or quizzes, getting them to interact with you, they'll probably then be more comfortable clicking on a link to go through to a website because they're already engaging, they're in that mode. They might want to link that to watching a longer video about the brand or, you know, specific offers. Working with UGC, obviously, or influencers, give them a tracked link, so something that you can see when it is clicked that goes through to the page, and build some retargeting off that. And obviously reshare anything that they post so that you've got that kind of whole 360 to ensure that all the links are there. Obviously, Instagram shopping is still a thing. I think probably underused for quite a lot of smaller brands, particularly in food and drink, and challenger brands, SMEs, because larger brands will invest really heavily in APIs and things like Shopify, but it is possible to do on a budget if you know what you're doing, and you don't have to have, you know, thousands and thousands of products. You could do it with 20 if you've got 20 that you want to push on Instagram shopping. People like to stay inside the bubble of the platform that they're spending time on, so allow them to do that if you can. And then obviously you've got paid ads, which I mentioned at the beginning. That's really useful, particularly to kind of wrap up previous engagers and to make sure that the targeting for specific products is going to reach exactly the right people.
Yeah. And so it's a real mix of formats and styles that you need to, I mean, it's a great time to test and learn as well, to see what is grabbing people's attention in that period. And creative campaigns, of course, really important. What's really interesting is that TikTok sees a 20% higher video watch rate post-Christmas. So we know that vertical video is on the rise. What creative approaches should brands use to get greater standout? I know that's a very big question, because you know, food and drink is like a big sector.
Absolutely. Like, you have to stop the scroll, right? That's the real tricky thing, because you can imagine, again, with a lot of downtime, a lot of kind of more opportunity to scroll and to watch videos. The important thing is to consider what you really want them to see at that point. Do you really need them to see we've got a sale, or do you need them to actually take in more of the information and think about it in a slightly different way? So I think it's a really good opportunity to create, to generate more UGC and more engagement with the audience who maybe they've just received the product as a gift. Maybe you can share did you knows about it. You can share tips on how to use, myths, secrets, stuff that's going to surprise and delight them that they weren't really expecting to see, but they'll actually, you know, raise their eyebrows and say, oh, I've just got that, or I was thinking about that, and hopefully comment and engage. Giveaways, they're good because you obviously, some people weren't lucky enough to be gifted, or they weren't lucky enough to have had it before. So something that gives them the opportunity to understand how great the product is, and then an opportunity to win something at a later date is always a good opportunity. I think it's also a great time to start building the brand and build trust as well, because things like behind the scenes, maybe a recap of what happened in the run up to Christmas, or what's the next big thing that the brand are about to do into January, is quite a nice thing to do. So you don't have to just say, again, sell, here's the product, try it out. It can be as well sort of a little bit longer, because we know they're going to maybe have the time to watch it. As long as you start off with something compelling that stops the scroll, that they potentially see something fun, funny, informative, entertaining, something that they weren't expecting to see right at the top of the video, then you can go into a slightly longer brand story. And obviously we can post much longer TikTok videos now than we used to be able to, so opportunity to build those stories a little bit more. But yeah, the main thing is what people are looking for when there's sort of higher watch rates and the higher times is entertainment. That's what they really want. It's the calm after the storm. They want to laugh. They want to see that brands are on trend, that they're listening to them. So talk about things, but keep it light, keep it fun, and keep it inspiring is what I would say.
Absolutely. And I think, absolutely. And when it comes to vertical video, entertainment has got to be your cornerstone. And particularly, I think in January, where we've got darker nights, earlier nights, people are feeling a bit like we've got Blue Monday or whatever coming on the horizon. So I think that is really key. You should be that inspiration, that joy in that moment. But I also think this is a time to think a little bit harder about your shopper missions. So by example, imagine you're a product that's, chicken nuggets. I'm just making that up. There'll be many reasons people buy chicken nuggets. So it might be because it's a great way to feed the kids during the Christmas holidays. It could be because you can put them in the freezer and they're always there for when you forget what you're going to have for tea and you haven't planned ahead of yourselves. Or it could be that you want Quorn chicken nuggets because you want to be healthy and so starting to look in more detail at shopper missions through this is where you can hook your creative into to actually drive sales, because that's ultimately what you want to do in Q5 is get people buying. So talking about finding those little elements that work, it would be useful to touch on emerging trends because we've done some research. It's in a nice ungated report. I'm just putting this into the feed so you can now see. You can follow the bit.ly link, which is Q5 Uncovered, and it will take you to a website which you can just read the report. You don't have to fill in any forms or anything else. And what's really interesting looking at Q5 trends or trends that are emerging now that are likely to take off is that we see a rise in things like gluten-free and plant-based demand, not massively a surprise. But how can, alongside that, you've got something like 67% of consumers are still, even though the cost of living is here, prioritizing sustainability and ethics in the products that they buy, particularly when they're trying something new. So how can brands incorporate these trends or align with the ethics that our consumers are interested in?
Yeah, I think it's all about effort, actually, and that's tricky. But I think, consumers are looking for transparency. Don't make them go looking and searching and hunting about whether something is suitable for their diet, for example. Use the symbols that are available, use them as stickers on your videos. Clearly mark everything, not just on the pack, but in your messaging, maybe in your hashtags, maybe in your captions. Because the worst thing you can do is they don't know, they're not going to maybe go and hunt. So don't turn them off immediately by not making that effort to just make it clear. Obviously, when you're thinking about things like recipe videos, can you be more inclusive? Can you include alternatives or suggestions in the copy? Can you post a comment that says, let us know if you need a different dietary requirement to get the engagement going? And then be innovative as well. So, for example, don't just make all your vegan food recipes spicy, because that is like such a pet hate. Just because it's plants doesn't mean that everything has to be spicy. Work out how to enhance the natural flavors or put something else in. There's so much out there now. It doesn't just have to be, I know, we'll do spicy beans. That's not enough. So take a bit of effort. And it also doesn't have to be healthy. That's the other thing. Like, just because someone's chosen that, it might be a reason that they've chosen plant-based or that they're deciding to go gluten-free, but it's not the only reason. So vegan and plant-based and things like that doesn't mean healthy necessarily. So think about how you can make something appealing, and it doesn't just have to be that losing weight January type of thing as well.
It's about being distinctive, isn't it? Because that's the thing.
Yeah.
Everybody is talking about dry January and being healthier. How can you be different in that space so that you can stand out?
Yeah, and for people to enjoy it, because again, we just talked about they need sort of cheering up, maybe they need a bit of fun and inspiration. And the sustainability bit and the ethics is kind of the same. So again, find the transparency where you can. Consumerism post-Christmas, often people have a little bit of guilt around maybe the waste that they've created, maybe their wrapping paper or the plastic or the whatever the thing is. So you can talk to them a little bit without being preachy about what you're doing or what you have done and how you help them alleviate their sort of slight consumer guilt over it. What are their plans for 2024? But yeah, as I say, it's really take the effort to properly embed it in, take the effort to craft the messaging that is truthful, transparent, and helpful. And there are some specific message sets that you could use to kind of generate some extra sales, like zero waste gift guides, or, you know, here's our most sustainable packaging, you can buy this in the sale, and things like pledges, goals, give back initiatives that people can talk about as well. But as it's more effort, it's worth it.
Yes, and because again, it sets you up for the rest of the year. People will remember, even if they don't buy in that quarter 5 period, they will remember what you said. And I think there's also another really interesting aspect. There's what we saw when we were looking at the listing is this massive increase now in home cooking, 26% increase in talking about cooking at home, predominantly down to cost factors. And there's obviously a growing requirement for budget-friendly content. But that doesn't mean discounts. And I think the real key here is about being really smart. I mean, you may want to offer discounts and vouchers and etc. But you can also start to think about how you can create content that talks about how you can put half of this in the freezer and have it next week, and really start to think about really clever ways in which you can support your consumer through January, which is, you know, as I said, dark, cold, and with a cost of living crisis. And I think all our, God, I'll make it sound terrible. All our utility bills go up. Oh my God, January's gonna be hell. But I do think that it's that opportunity. What I'm hearing is there's a little bit of gratitude, which you mentioned earlier, but there's a lot of really getting into the minutiae and the detail. And that kind of brings me on to, you know, CMOs. What are the actionable tactics that could take advantage, specifically the fact that there is also a much lower ad cost during this period? Traditionally, don't know it'll always be that way this year, but usually what happens is it's really expensive prior to Christmas, and then suddenly the ad cost drops. So how can we make the most of that?
I think it's about planning, which can sound really boring. Sorry about that, but it is the ever hungry task, isn't it, for marketers? Like, find the time to plan, spare a thought for Jan, you know, set aside 10 minutes at the end of your planning meeting about your next week's festive content, because a lot of the ways that you can continue to extend the campaigns are going to be quite easy. You just need to take a little bit of time to say, how can we tweak this little existing message, this offer, this recipe, this motivation to go shopping? How can we tweak that so that it makes sense post-festive period, in the Q5 period? So it's obviously, you can extend it, or you can also choose to do something entirely new, flip it on its head. As you said, paid, big opportunity. It's a great time to do retargeting. It's also the most cost-effective paid ads that you can ever do. They will be a lower CPM than just going out to a cold audience. So sweep up all that engagement, hopefully, that you had in December. Sweep up those people who watched your videos for 15 seconds and clicked on a link or commented, and retarget them. And you can then think, do I want to share with them the more brand level content so that they get to know the brand better and we kind of start nurturing them early on? Or do I also want to hit them with a bit of a sale message, a discount message, some reason to go and buy? Probably you want to do a bit of both. It just depends on how aggressive you want to be with the sales tactics, really. And ultimately try and convert them to become long-term followers. So ensure that one of your ad sets or one of your campaign objectives is to become a follower, or to like the page, or to visit your Instagram profile. And take advantage then of making sure that you can reach them guaranteed. We know that, you know, organically it is tricky to reach people. You can find yourself having very low engagement rates and very low reach rates, particularly at a busy time of year. So try and pick them up as much as possible.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So It's been a bit of a whirlwind. We do have the report. Please go and have a look at it. There's much more detail in there. Think about, as Belle said, how you can involve the customer in this period, how you can encourage more UGC, God, it's early in the morning for me, UGC, how you can really extend your festive period activity so that you can carry it through and it's not a mass change in content creation. Little things like if you're creating with baubles and Christmas decorations, remember that sometime in January everybody takes them down, so at the end of that shoot you could do a shoot with the deconstruction of your Christmas decorations, and again hit that moment when people are feeling a little bit like, ooh, Christmas is over, I quite fancy a gin and tonic, whatever it is. Yeah. So Q5 is more than an extension of, obviously, of the festive season, and it is a really unique period where you can grab, particularly in food and drink, grab attention right at the beginning of the year and propel your Q1. So we covered a lot today, from data-driven strategies, creative campaigns, lots of angles. As I said, look at the report. And remember, social media is always moving at a phenomenal speed. So do keep an eye on what's trending, particularly on the vertical videos like TikTok Reels and Shorts, because those can change very fast. Thank you for joining me, Belle. As always, my mind is now racing with ideas. Really appreciate it. And I hope it's brought a little bit more to life in terms of how you could approach this and how to take, even now, even though we're rolling exhausted into Christmas, you could still do a few things that could really make the most of this Q5 period and get ahead of the game. Thank you very much. We didn't get any main questions that I could see through my system, but thank you very much for joining us. We'll respond if you still want to ask questions. We'll respond in comments, so we'll just type it back up again. Thank you very much. Have a lovely Thursday, and if we don't see you again, which is pretty unlikely as we head into Christmas, have a wonderful Christmas and New Year. Take care. Bye.
Bye.